All right, back in the saddle on a Monday morning, the 10th of the month. We're at 16 degrees right now in the Granite City. CODY Morrison is with me from Barre Area Development, getting the work week started. 16 right now, pal, and we have a wind chill advisory, or a wind chill warning, rather, that's in effect. So we got a big-time cold snap that's coming in, and what I'm understanding is that it's not going to be here too long. It'll be short-lived. And on the backside of it could be temperatures 25 to 35 degrees above zero. Again, mid to later part of the week, more like later part of the week, like Thursday, Friday. But in the meantime, if we break zero tomorrow, we're going to be lucky. So I guess the good news, the bad news is, CODY, we don't have a lot of snow. The good news is it's not going to be going anywhere fast. No,
we're supposed to get, 10 below
Something
tonight?
like that. And then with the wind chill, it's like 1 million below or something like that. So.
That's going to be great for the outdoor rinks.
Yes, it is.
I'm looking forward to skating up by the treatment plant.
Yeah,
Up on North Main Street.
Had a friend up there the other day.
Yep.
Hey, a quick recap here. Steelers beat the Ravens overtime 16-13 in sports. What a win. Las Vegas defeated the Chargers 35-32 OT Sunday night thriller last night. Tennessee knocked off the Texans 28-25 in Houston. 49ers are punching their tickets to the playoffs with a very nice comeback win, 27-24 over the Rams. And Jacksonville stunned the Colts 26-11 at home. Great day and night for just kind of putting the sweatpants on and getting a warm blanket and maybe a cup of coffee and watching some football yesterday.
It's still weird. I still think it's weird to hear Las Vegas.
Yeah, I know.
But
it'll always be that way.
They got the Golden Knights in the NHL, the Raiders now.
Right.
They've been making a hard push to get the Athletics over from Oakland.
Yes. I know we'll always be like that.
I'm sure the Clippers are going to move over there at some point.
Yeah.
Or some NBA team.
I'm older than you, but I'm still going to have a hard time saying Las Vegas for a long time. Vermont.
Well, they were Los Angeles at one point.
Yeah.
The Raiders were, yeah.
Yeah, long time. One of the big stories in Vermont news today is the school districts have been advised to stop contact tracing and PCR testing of students. Dan French, our education secretary, kind of dropped this on Friday night and informed the education department of the policy change that's going to be taking place this week. A lot of people are talking about that this morning because, as you know, sometimes when news drops on a Friday, especially a Friday night, kind of gets a little bit lost in the weeds and diluted a little bit over the weekend. But we're waking up Monday morning to this news here in case you were not aware that this went down Friday. So one of the big stories that's happening. And we got some others, too. State judicial officials are recommending the N95 or similar quality masks to be worn in the courthouses in Vermont. So some big stuff that's going on today.
We actually have breaking news here. We've just found out that Elizabeth Howard was named Student of the Month up at the Barrytown Middle and Elementary School.
Wonderful. Wow.
That's tremendous
That's
news.
Great. Congratulations, Susan. Wow. You know, you got to, all teachers are working hard, but you got to go like so far above and beyond to be able to get something like that. I don't know exactly what her magic is, but congratulations to her. The other big story is Bob Saget found dead in his hotel room in Florida. 65 years old. This one's just breaking this morning. Did you ever watch Full House?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Let's see. So we had Bob Saget, then Betty White.
Yeah, Betty White.
A couple weeks ago.
I
John
know.
Madden.
Yeah.
Harry Reid in the same time frame.
Unreal.
Yeah.
Before we begin, happy birthday to Justin Lawrence, too. He's on the birthday list today. Not sure how old the old hag is, but he's getting up there.
Oh, and happy birthday to Carl Rinker on Friday.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
this past Friday?
Yeah, he had a birthday.
How do we have a number?
Somebody out there probably does.
Yeah,
I do
sure.
not.
Whatever he is, he's going on 20-something.
Yeah.
I think it was
absolutely.
you that says that Carl Rinker really only has one gear, and it's nuclear.
Yeah, the guy just gives 200% to in absolutely everything he does.
Man, I love starting the work week with you, Cody, from Barre Area Development. You've got your thumb on the beat of this city, and as well as Barrytown, and I just love to hear what you have to say, because there's a lot of stuff where, and you and I will get texting back and forth sometimes on Sundays, and most of the time that you text me, I go, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. You've always got interesting things to share, and I think we should let's start out with some of these grants for small businesses and startups. These are very unique in that it's very specific to businesses that are really new and have a super small staff.
Yeah. So this is called the Embrace Grant Program. We've been talking about this for the last couple weeks now.
Right.
But basically, if your business has fewer than 5 employees and you didn't get any of the other COVID relief funds, like you didn't get the bridge grant from earlier this year, you didn't get any of the PPP stuff.
Yeah.
And we're just talking about the business specifically here. Like if you had unemployment or anything on your in your personal life, then that they don't recognize that. That doesn't count for what we're talking about here. And there are a few other qualifiers, but those are the two main big ones to getting this grant. And you can get up to $5,000. Let's say if you needed to hire a website consultant to redesign your website, if you needed to hire an attorney to help with a merger or whatever you may need an attorney for. Yeah. If you needed new equipment, like we'll take you as an example. If you wanted new microphones, or something to that effect, lighting, audiovisual equipment, stuff that would basically help you grow the Air It Out podcast and Fly on the Wall Productions or the Fly on the Wall Network. Yeah, now with 2 channels.
Yes, exactly. And Barry Beat.
Yes. Yeah. Monday nights at 7.
That's right.
And so if you wanted to do that, that's what it would be. Or that's what the grant could go towards. Yeah. So some things that they'll ask you kind of like in the grant application are like exactly what are you going to spend the money on? How do you know what things are going to cost? Think of it like you're putting together a budget almost like a construction project or something. If you know that your microphones are going to cost you $3,000, then have backup for it. If you know that your legal fees are going to cost you $1,000, then have some way to quantify that. If you know that your website design is going to cost another $1,000 for a total of $5,000, then find some way to prove that that's going to cost $1,000 and be able to articulate kind of exactly how many and in what way that the grant will help your business grow. So if we're talking about mics here and increased audio-visual equipment, maybe a new tripod or something, you, JD, would be able to say that we're going to be able to have another table here with more guests so we can, so we can fulfill our obligations to our sponsors or whatever it may be. Sure. Or if you want to get cables, So, and the thing that we find with grant programs like these, especially during COVID, is that the private sector really, up until COVID, the private sector rarely ever interacted with the grant world or applied for stuff like this. Beforehand, in the before times, if you were doing research and development, if you were in the defense industry or some very niche industry, then there might be some grants that are out there. But if you're just your regular mom and pop store, there's really not going to be any grant funding that's out there and available from the state. So this is where COVID has made things a little more confusing for the business communities. If I tell you or Bob Nelson or Melissa Pecor or anybody, hey, here's this grant program, go apply, go. And then all of a sudden they're asked for like a DUNS number, which is in the nonprofit and the public sector, it's kind of like a serial number for an organization, if you will. But a nonprofit would know what a little thing like that is. A for-profit really never has to interact with that side of government. So
sure.
That's one reason why we keep talking about these grant programs that are out there and available, just because a lot of this stuff is new for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And especially with this Embrace grant program, if you didn't get any of the other COVID relief funding, you are even more kind of behind the ball on how to work with some of these grant programs.
Sure.
So we've put a link to the program in the chat here for any businesses that are out there that want to know how they can get these funds. On January 18th is when startups and businesses that have been open for less than a year can apply. So if you see a building on Main Street, or if you, let's say, you build furniture out of your garage and you want to move up to the Wilson Industrial Park, and you want to create a company and go do one of those two things, this Embrace grant would be able to help you. There are some other additional requirements with that, like you have to get some business coaching, whether it be like through the Small Business Administration, through Capstone over here. Margaret Ferguson. Yep. Oh, she's wonderful.
Margaret and I have been in touch. First of all, we've been in touch for a long time about having her on the podcast, but even recently. So she's going to be on soon.
Oh, good.
She's going to be on soon.
I'm looking forward to seeing it.
I think that for some of us, our list of goods versus our lists of services might be a little top heavy in certain areas. At least for me, the whole service needs are nowhere near what the physical goods are that are needed over here. So it can be, if you're a first timer at this, it can be a little confusing.
Oh, this stuff is daunting to me, and I do it for a living. I spend my life, once in a while I get to do fun stuff like, Monday mornings I come on here and shoot the breeze with you.
Yeah.
But even accessing a lot of these grant programs for people, municipal staff, I know Janet Shatney over in the planning, zoning, permitting department. She does a lot of work with this stuff.
Yeah.
It's daunting to us, and we, live our life swimming through red tape.
Yeah, right.
But
if anyone has any questions, they could maybe reach out to you. But it's pretty straightforward. It's not that complicated. And if you're already well organized in your mind of what your specific needs are, and what the costs associated with those needs might be, you could sit down on your couch and have this done in less than an hour.
And the kind of a skill with the grant writing stuff is taking your needs and translating those to what the government needs or what the government needs to hear. So a lot of these programs will be created, like Congress will create a random program, or the legislature will, because we want to help small businesses and we want to create 500 jobs or whatever their metric is.
Yeah.
The responsibility for the applicant is to prove how what you're going to be doing is going to match what the legislature or Congress created the program for.
Right.
So you're kind of taking your problems and turning them into government solutions,
right?
If you will, probably be.
Well,
best way I could put it.
Respectfully, they want the ultimate transparency. They want to make sure you're not taking this 5K and buying a motorcycle with it or going on a vacation. They want to see you use it for what the intended plan was, which is to grow your business.
And you're going to have to submit your receipts too.
Yeah, right.
I haven't looked this closely into it yet, but I believe that it's probably a reimbursement style grant. So if you have $5,000 that you've been awarded, and you want to recuperate $2,000 of it, then you need to submit receipts for $2,000, and they'd direct deposit it into your bank account. And it's usually how it works with most programs. I don't see why this one would be any different.
And you've got till what, November to spend it down, I think?
Correct. Yeah, you have until about Thanksgiving to spend it down.
Okay.
And
shouldn't be hard to do.
and it's first come, first serve. So anybody out there listening today that has an LLC with less than 5 employees and meets those other qualifications can go and apply right this very minute. Yeah. On January 18th, it opens up to startups and newer businesses that have been open for less than a year. And when they say open for an X amount of time, they go off of when the paperwork was filed at the Secretary of State's office. So occasionally,
for your LLC or whatever it is.
So let's say if you have like an Etsy business and if you sell crafts and you do that on Etsy for a couple of years and you don't form an LLC, you don't do your annual reports to the Secretary of State, you don't pay sales tax, things of that nature. Once it gets taken to the next level, once you go and make it an official business to the point where you have to do some of that state government reporting, then that would be the date that they'd base it off of. So that's and that's the case for a lot of entrepreneurs when people will start like working out of their spare bedroom, their basement, their garage. They'll sell a few things at night.
Yeah. I know several people that are trying to survive that way.
Actually, one person that immediately comes to mind is Amanda Gustin. So she's a public program manager over at the Historical Society.
Sure.
And she has a business that where she creates, I think, like covers for horse saddles.
Interesting.
And she'll sell them and she'll sell them online. It's pretty cool. But a lot of people have little side hustles like that.
Right.
Who actually, Amanda was hit statewide news twice this week. For Barry.
Really?
Yeah. She on WCAX, she had a little interview about the Paramount Theaters, talking about the history of that, and then. Oh, no, Local 22 was the theater, and WCAX, she gave a little interview about Hope Cemetery.
No kidding.
Yeah, pretty cool. I just happened to see that online this week. I'm like,
I love it.
It's good. Great marketing, great exposure for Barry.
Of course it is.
And Amanda's a great spokesperson for the community, I think.
I got to go check that out, man. I'll Google it up.
Yeah.
What about tax incentives for our businesses right here in Barre City and Barrytown?
Right. So over the last few weeks, if you've regularly been watching the show, you might have heard us mention a tax stabilization policy.
Yeah. And I got to just pause here for a second because Michael Booten and Rich Morey have been talking a lot about this with the Barry Beat podcast filmed right here on North Main Street as well, which is some complicated subject matter. I think they've been talking about the sales tax more than the tax stabilization policy. So they've talked a little tax stabilization too, which for me it's not the most exciting.
So it doesn't really apply to you as much. It applies more to property owners.
Right.
And this is a policy that we worked with city staff and the mayor to get updated, just to expand it to include more residential and smaller type projects, like ADA projects, equipment for businesses. As bigger equipment is involved in assessments. But basically, a tax stabilization policy. If you're a property owner and you put a bunch of work into your property, the idea is that your tax assessment will go up. Your building will be worth more because it has a new roof, it's been weatherized, you've got all new windows, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
New plumbing, whatever it may be.
Right, it's got new plumbing. So if your building is assessed at $500,000, now it'll be assessed at $700,000 or whatever.
Right.
What the tax stabilization policy does is it freezes parts of the pre-renovation assessment to encourage property owners to invest in their properties. So I know the Blanchard Block, City Place, and I think like 18 properties since 2008 or 9 have received in the city have went out for tax stabilization. So the idea of it is that you don't get hit with the increased tax bill right off the bat. So
you still have your normal tax bill though.
Right, you still have your normal tax bill, but you're not going to have to pay the entire new tax bill.
Right. So it's not like a forbearance type thing.
Right. So from the city's perspective, or from the town's perspective, because the town has a similar policy, the town and the city are basically deferring the gains in that from that assessment.
Yeah.
So they're basically saying, all right, we're going to put off collecting the extra money for a few years. 5 to 10 years.
Wow.
And I think it's statutorily limited to 10 years. But all tax agreements come in all shapes and sizes.
Yeah.
But from the municipal perspective, they kind of defer realizing those gains in order to encourage property owners to invest into their properties. So when that time has come, when that time has expired, yep.
Is it your new bill or does it go up slowly?
So communities have the ability to manipulate that. And I would consult with city staff on more of the specifics as to how they manage their stabilization policies. But that is an economic development tool or an incentive that's available really throughout the country in a lot of municipalities.
Okay.
So
that you're not waking up the next day with a new tax bill that you're saying, holy shit, I can't afford this. I just dumped a couple $100,000 into this building, and this is painful, and that's the punishment I get for improving my building.
So basically, if we have a company that takes like the Tenco building, 460 North Main Street, that big industrial building up behind the car dealership. When we talk about tax incentives and economic development, people usually think of the state of New Jersey giving Amazon $8 billion to move their new headquarters to Newark,
right.
Or enter any example like that. The value that we'd be able to offer a company in coming in if they have renovation plans or a big building like that would be the deferred taxes that they would, or their deferred tax liability for that number of years. So that might be 20, 30, 40, 50 grand, depending on the size of the renovation over X amount of years. So the town also has a tax stabilization policy, and it's a good tool, but you can combine that with like other job training programs, other, depending on the grant stimulus climate. Like right now, there's some housing stuff that's out there available. If you're looking at a mixed use building, there's a code. There's a I can't think of the word for this right now. There's housing grants right now for up to $30,000 that'll help you get your residential units up to code. So if you're buying, one of these buildings across the street that may have a half a dozen apartments up above 2 storefronts, then you'd be able to combine those a little bit, and we'd be able to work with the company to help secure some of those funds if they're looking at redevelopment.
So is this a go in Barre?
Oh yeah, no, these both communities have had these policies for quite a while. So
when did this whole thing start? Did it start pre-COVID? Was there chatter about this pre-COVID?
So the last time the city's tax stabilization policy was updated was in 2013, but I think the policy as a whole has been around since the 90s.
Is it back into the conversation because or in any way related to COVID?
It's kind of a standalone program, and it's something it's something that both communities have had for quite some time. It doesn't really relate, or it's hard to relate it to COVID. It would be like a senior tax exemption, or something to that effect.
Yeah, we're getting some comments here. A huge incentive for both the city and property owners. And we can't forget about Barrytown, too. No. $250 application fee. So if you do a $5,000 improvement, like a pool, it won't make a difference. But a $100,000 improvement, you might see benefit, says Michael Booton right here.
Yeah, so let's say if you were to do a pool and you were to renovate, let's say you were to convert your garage into a couple residential apartment units.
Right.
You have some amenities for your new residents, for your new Vermonters.
Yeah.
The minimum threshold, you have to have at least, I know in the city, you have to have at least a $50,000 project. So I don't know what a pool costs, but tag on a roof, tag on
Sure.
some piping,
Sure.
some insulation for your piping because it's cold today. We don't want those to burst.
Right.
A new heating system. If you kind of throw your wish list your wish list into a single construction project, present it to the city, it gets approved. Then you receive that benefit for however long the agreement is.
Right. What else with this? What else with this?
So another way.
Where do you get an application for it?
On the city website, or you could also reach out to the planning, zoning, and permitting departments with both communities. So you could reach out to either the town manager or city manager's office. You could reach out to Chris Violet or to Janet Shatney, and they'd be able to get you an application.
All right, $250 for the application.
Yep.
What might make you get rejected?
So
do you know?
The projects require you to do, or the language in the programs require you to have a substantial rehab of, there's a bunch of different qualifiers. I know with the city's policy, I'll mention that one because that's the one I'm most recently familiar with. If you were doing a residential project, if you were doing an ADA project, business equipment, and a few other areas, then you'd have to have substantial work in one of those areas. If you were to get rejected, I would think that for the city or the town to accept your application and for it to get forwarded to where it goes on to a public hearing process, you most likely have a project that qualifies anyway. So let's say if you're only doing $10,000, $20,000 worth of work, they're not going to take your money just for the sake of taking your money for an application and putting it on the docket, finding out it doesn't qualify.
That's exactly what I was alluding to.
So municipal staff, town, city staff, and us are more than happy to help work with any applicant just to make sure that you have all the T's crossed, all the I's dotted.
Before you write a check for $250.
Right. We don't want people having negative experiences working with their local government, businesses, and residents alike. And if you're in what situation your project would be rejected, if you cleared all those other, if you jump through all those other hoops, if you spent at least $50,000 and you're doing a big roofing project, or if it qualified everywhere else, the ultimate approval is based off of the ultimate approval is handled by the select board and the city council, which you would probably have to ask one of the councilors or the select board members that particular day why a certain application would fail. So it does take it into a somewhat political. It is a somewhat political rather than a quasi-judicial approval process, and that's just how it was designed. That's how the law was written. So you'd have to ask the elected officials who denied it, why one would get denied, and it can be for various reasons. But one thing to note is that this program applies to your municipal tax liability, not to your education tax. So if you want to apply for your education tax, you have to do that separately through the Vermont Economic Progress Council, which we can help with that. But anyways, enough of me putting everyone to sleep on a Monday morning talking about taxes. But one last thing I'll talk about, what we can do locally for businesses here is, Barre Area Development. We do have a loan fund that is available for businesses that want to grow in Barre, whether you are existing or you want to move here. So if we're talking about the company that's going to take over the Tenco building on North Main Street, or if we're talking about the furniture company that wants to move up to the Wilson Industrial Park, we have a fund that's out there that is geared towards job creation. So for every $35,000, or we can lend up to $35,000 for every job created. So if you want to create 2 jobs and you want to get some working capital on top of that, like, if you want to need money for renovation, if you need money for fit up, if you need some equipment, if you need a CNC machine or you need a couple table saws, if you need a dust collection system, if you're building furniture, then it's going to get pretty dusty in there, and
quickly.
You don't want that. You don't want to be breathing that in. So dust collection systems are essential for a lot of businesses. And let's say you want to bring a couple people on, but you want a little cushion too. Let's say you want an extra 10, 20 grand or whatever to help pay the lease for a few months to help get you off the ground.
Get your roots in the ground.
Yeah. So
that's so interesting.
Yeah. So we have a loan fund that is available for that, the Barre Revolving Loan Fund. And so that is actually a program that was created in partnership between us, the town of Barre, and the Vermont Community Loan Fund. And Community Loan Fund, they're a statewide organization based up in Montpelier that works with a lot of small businesses. So they'll work with like restaurants and a lot of startups, smaller organizations. One local example of this program, we helped with the Homer Fitz building redevelopment. So Vermont Salumi, very recently. So my predecessor Joel Schwartz and the town and the Vermont Community Loan Fund worked with the property owners to redevelop the building, and it was about $180,000 loan that helped create some jobs. And I don't know if you've gone into the AR market lately, but they are busy.
Yeah. Wow. That's so cool, man.
And
so what are the interest rates on stuff like this, and do they compete with other options?
Oh, they certainly do compete with other options, and the rates are going to be dictated. Really, it's going to be close to around the prime rate. So, whatever the Fed has and whatever the current market rate is for that point, it's going to be not too far from that. There is. And I had a conversation with a banker very recently. This can be a very important question, as right now it's not hard to get high interest loans. I'm sure you've seen online. There's plenty of places where you can go and apply, almost like online loan sharking.
Yeah, sure.
You can go and
get it right away.
A grant, $1,000 today, 25% interest.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So our program isn't one like that. The program was created to for a public good. From our perspective, like I don't make any more or less money if we get a loan out. Our interest is in making sure that Vermont Salumi is cranking out sausages, or whoever we're working with. Furniture is being made up in the Wilson Industrial Park.
What's the limit on this? Do we know? You may have already answered that.
Yeah, so usually it's going to be under 100,000, right around in that range. But it depends on the balance of the loan fund and a few other factors. But usually with these deals, they'll be combined with some other loan product. So it may be combined with an SBA loan. It may be combined with something at Community National Bank or Northfield Savings Bank, or something with a Vermont Community Capital, just right down the road here at the Goodfellows Building. So that is another business program that is out there, specifically for Barre businesses, Barre City, Barrytown. That's available if there's a business that wants to come here and grow. So we can combine that with a tax stabilization policy. Then we can help you get, one of the Embrace grants we talked about earlier. So you can, get your ducks in a row, and then it can be happily ever after. You can.
Do you think there's some a level of apprehension that people might have, especially new business startups, with the economy right now, with inflation, with COVID, with a worker shortage, to be able to pull the trigger on an idea or a pipe dream that they might have?
Well, people will, let's see, how should I put this? People have apprehension on making, if you have a car right now, you could go ahead and sell it. You could make a bunch of money, but then you'd have to go out and buy a new one for 10% over MSRP. Or, there's some apprehension in the car market right now for that reason. There's some apprehension in the home market right now. There's
everywhere.
There's apprehension amongst families right now wanting, two income, mom and dad, the nuclear family, mom, dad, young child. There's apprehension in households right now for the second parent going out and getting a job because of the uncertainty of COVID.
Yeah, right.
Cases are at an all-time high. We're setting records, it seems like, every day now.
We are.
It's not going to be long. I'm sure it's not going to be long before schools go back to remote learning.
Yeah.
So that's something that's on the minds of many families right now. So that's really no different than in the business community as well.
Yeah.
However, the difference is if you're looking at starting a business, you've determined that there's a market for it already. We'll look at the Wood Doodles folks over here to our left.
Right.
They've been doing it, I'm sure, as a hobby, and they've determined that there's a market for it. So as they continue to grow their business, they're going to go to expand that.
Yeah.
COVID certainly does have, supply chain issues.
That's a great example.
But they have determined that there's a market for it. And
they're doing really well.
And just like Bob Nelson across the street here, he took over the former Pool World space because his business was growing, even though with COVID it was hard finding workers, supply chain issues.
That's right.
He determined that there is enough volume and there is enough demand for him to open a couple thousand extra feet of retail space right next door.
Sure.
And a lot of the workforce issues don't come into play as much in a lot of smaller entrepreneurial ventures. We'll take you as an example. If you were to reconvert the bathroom into a booth for God knows why, the way that your business is set up, would the ability or availability of workers stop you from doing that? Doesn't you?
Right.
Raylene's, you've got Raylene. She does great. You're not looking to actively hire people, so that wouldn't, that I know of at least, that wouldn't actively come into your decision making.
Yeah.
But it does in the majority of other businesses that do have, that aren't just one person shops.
Sure.
Supply chain issues are, also a major issue, of course.
Yeah.
And those aren't going to go away anytime soon. I think the best way that I can analogize the economy right now is kind of like a chicken with its head cut off that just had a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
It's moving in all kinds of weird different directions.
Yeah.
I was speaking with a store recently, a retail outlet that had some predictability with getting materials and supplies and products, but it was random in what they could and what the supply chain issues were.
Yeah.
They would have this one random product that was on back order, even though they could get lumber or they could get whatever it may be.
Right. It really depends on what sector your business is targeted at, really, and whether you need. For example, what we have is something so different and so unique, but so needed on so many different levels that this is how we're connecting as people. Pre-COVID, podcasting was already taken off across America, around the world, but especially with COVID in place. Can we do this and be connected to people without having to physically be together in the same room? And the answer is a resounding yes.
Oh, absolutely. And from our perspective too, this is the business that we do here is great because working with government, navigating the programs, getting the funding, figuring out. With the business community, you may be the best restaurateur ever on the face of the earth. You may know how to make a pizza better than everybody, but when it comes to getting funding for your business, you may not know that the SBA exists or that our small business or that our revolving loan fund program exists. So, because there's only one of me at Barre Area Development, we implement outreach strategies like we partner with the Times Argus.
Yes.
We have our own website. We use social media.
Yeah.
And, this is one way that we can go on and help break down some of the programs and talk about what's going on in Barry's economy more in a more personal fashion.
And you've got to have that. You've got to be able to do that. If it's not radio, it's got to be podcasting or something. And you didn't you have something kind of in the pipe with Tony Campos over at Central Vermont Television?
Yep. So we've been working on putting together a little TV show or television program. Following the same theme that we're talking about here, maybe because it's more television based, we'll be able to get a little more creative with some of the plots and some of the settings. But we're looking to partner with them as well.
What's the latest on that? Is that still in the pipe?
I owe Tony some information.
Okay.
so I owe a follow-up to him.
Question here that we're getting in our comments, is this something that should be promoted more to help fill empty storefronts on Main Street? And another question, has there been increased or decreased interest from companies looking at Barre? What can we look forward to in the next year or so? And a thank you for being on the show to get the word out, too.
Well, thank you for tuning in.
All coming in right now in the comments.
That's why we do it. So there has been a lot of interest among companies looking to relocate to Barre. And it varies a little bit from the city and the town. The town has more... there's more industrial interest just because we have the Wilson Industrial Park up there. And
Barrytown.
Yep, up in Barrytown, up by... up across from the athletic complex and the elementary school up there. There's Cabot Creamery actually just rented space up in the industrial park. They're going to do some storage over in there. We have another company that is setting up shop over there that we helped to recruit Maple Corner Woodworks. They're a furniture manufacturer up in the industrial park.
Nice.
So we've had a lot of interest among industrial companies up in Barrytown. And South Barre actually is a place that's getting a lot of interest from the retail side. You've got the South Barre Commercial Center, the old Howard's Market, right across from the Maplewoods gas station, and there's other commercial space available kind of as you're going out towards Williamstown in Washington.
What about right across from Cumberland Farms here in South Barre? Can't think of the name of the building. Sherwin-Williams Plaza there.
So that is Wall Street. So that is a big horseshoe, essentially.
Yeah. I don't know why I couldn't think of it. It's just I haven't had my coffee.
So that's an interesting building. So that has there's an old granite shed. If you're looking at it from Cumberland Farms, and you're looking towards the river, essentially in that direction. On the right hand side, there's about a 16,000-foot industrial building with about 20-foot high ceilings, and that was an old granite shed. So if we had a warehousing or industrial company that wanted to move into there, that would be a good space for them. The C program, the Special Education Alternatives program with Spalding High School, before they built their building up on Allen Street, they used to be located in there, down at Wall Street. And you've got Barre City Jazzercise, they're down there.
That's right.
The senior center is down there, Campo Divino.
Campo Divino's been there for a while.
Yeah, so there is space down there that is available. But but on the city side, in response to the question about interest in moving to Barre, on the city side, there's a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of one-man shops, people that are looking to open businesses here.
Sure.
And we've had quite a few over the last year that have come and moved in. Most recently, Pearl Street Pizza.
Yeah.
They're one
right behind me where I'm sitting.
Yep, right behind you. We had the American Canadian tour. They work with Thunder Road and some of the other racetracks.
Yeah.
They just moved from Waterbury over to the old Goodfellows building, 105 North Main Street. And in the Blanchard block, I know there's two vacancies left in there. We had Greenlight Real Estate move over into there recently. So there's been quite a bit of interest in the city as well. But it's definitely more like professional services based. We had Brave LLC. There's a women's clothing store. They're over next to Wabi Jewelers right now.
We got Lackey's Flooring coming in too.
Yep. So a lot of another thing that we're seeing too are people buying up buildings. Malone Properties are one of the biggest developers in the state. They just purchased the former Goodfellows building.
Yeah.
So you're seeing a lot of interest in the community right now, which is good. But we do have a high traffic count here. So actually, I've been meaning to bring this up. So outside there, you have a little box.
Yes.
And if we were to assume that it was for traffic counts, to count the number of cars that drive every day on downtown Barre has it, or anywhere.
Let me show it on camera. Well, at least I'll try.
Yeah.
To what you're talking about.
I'm not sure if that's what it's for, but that was the first thing that came into my mind when I saw it.
Yeah. A little box on the telephone pole.
Yep.
Or the light pole. The light pole, I should say.
But things like the amount of traffic that comes down a community, that's important and that's an important metric when you're looking at when a business is looking at opening up. You just want to know how many people are going to drive by and actually see your business. And that's one thing that Barre does have that's a big advantage. I think we have over 10,000 cars a day, average daily traffic count just down here on Main Street alone. That we have a lot of water sewer infrastructure capacity. A lot of communities in Vermont don't have public utilities.
Sure.
So if you are a light producer of some sorts, if you work with fabrics or if you work with some sort of raw materials and you need a bunch of water, or if you need a bunch of power to run some bigger machines, if you're going out to somewhere like, let's say, in the Mad River Valley, you're less likely to have municipal water, sewer, three-phase power, whereas we have all that here in Barre.
Yeah. Some of the questions coming in, and we got some viewers and listeners here who are kind of driving the bus. Great questions. In your opinion, what is Barre City's and Barrytown's biggest downfall or hurdle for attracting businesses and new residents? And then Michael Booton just dropped a comment. One of the difficulties the city faces is the size. We have 4 square miles. We don't have a lot of room for big companies, but certainly for small ones. Your response to both of those?
So the biggest issues facing Barrytown and Barre City, I would say, are broader statewide issues. The labor force, finding workers, retaining our youth. That is the number one issue that I hear about amongst those in the business community.
Sure. Retaining our youth. Big time.
Retaining our youth. We do have the second largest labor market here. The Barre Montpelier labor market has something like 25,000 people just in this immediate general area that can go and work that are able-bodied. Yeah. The amount of workers that are in within normal daily commute distance to a community is a big indicator of whether you can go and attract a business. So let's say if we had a warehousing company want to move up to next to Vermont Food Bank, we may have the infrastructure, we may check all the other boxes, but if there's no one there to work, then they're not going to move. And this is an issue that Barre and Vermont faced before the pandemic. But I think a few other things that I wouldn't say as much, hold the community back. There are some infrastructure things that we don't have here that, may be available in like Chittenden County. Like we don't have an international airport right here. We don't have a 4-year university. The workforce, having a college here or having the Central Vermont Career Center here is a big asset for any community.
Sure it is.
Because that shows that there's going to be a trained workforce readily available to work in your new factory or to work in your new store. So that's why having the Central Vermont Career Center here for so long has been such a great thing, because we are an industrial community. Post-secondary job training opportunities and trade in the trades. That's another thing that I think holds the community back. The Stone Art School has been making a lot of headway over the last year. Scott McLaughlin over at the Granite Museum has been doing a great job developing that center.
Tell Scott we haven't forgotten about him.
Yeah, Scott, he's a fascinating person to talk to. But over at the Career Center, there's an LNA program. But if you want to go and be a plumber, HVAC tech, if you want to work a CNC machine, usually you are doing it by way of on-the-job training or an apprenticeship, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you, JD, want to do a career change, but you want to work this job in the morning, you want to take night classes in HVAC or whatever, you'd have to drive down to Randolph or over to Chittenden County, which is, a lot of people are willing to do. People in rural areas know they have to drive for things. But having something like that here in Barre would make my job easier.
Yeah, right.
But building stock, is another thing if you're looking at redeveloping buildings. We do have an aging housing stock here and a lot of old buildings, but that's in the context of a broader issue, that's low. I would say lower on the list, but the workforce part is the biggest issue that I would see that would face the community.
Sure. One of these days, I don't know when, I'm sure you'll make it happen. You tell me. I would love to hop in the car and run up to Wilson Industrial Park with you and just kind of walk around and familiarize folks with what's in that complex. There's a lot of stuff in there that I don't even know about. I mean, I drive by it. I see the cars in there, and I see the volume of traffic going in and out of there. But I'd love to just kind of showcase that at some point.
Yeah, it'd be good to go on a little field trip.
We should do that.
Yeah. We're actually working on getting natural gas up there right now. We're exploring that possibility and working with property owners in the town and Vermont Gas, which would provide a lower cost, more fuel efficient, more environmentally friendly, and more controllable heating source. But that's another bit of infrastructure, kind of like roads, bridges, water, sewer. It's another piece of infrastructure that is important. But you've got Vermont Creamery up there. Advanced conversion there in the former SB Electronics building. A lot of cool stuff going on up there. A lot of cool stuff.
I have a few friends who work up at Vermont Creamery up there. So yeah.
Let's see. Michael says one of the difficulties the city faces of this size is we have 4 square miles. We don't have a lot of room for big companies, but certainly for small ones. So one thing to consider with that, when a big building is built, when a big factory is built for some distribution company, people will generally point to that as a success for the community, while overlooking some of the smaller ones like Rebecca Smetty over in Brave, like the Reynolds House Inn, that property being redeveloped. Over time, the renovation and development of smaller properties and businesses will bring in more tax revenue over time than, let's say, one big building will. And with the smaller businesses that are coming in, those are the people that are sponsoring your Little League teams, that are volunteering for your Rotary clubs, that are helping put together Christmas pageants and wrapping presents for children in need. So the small businesses are the ones that provide a lot of entertainment as well. After hours, you're probably not going to go up to Vermont Creamery. Probably not. You're going to go work there, but the smaller businesses like the ones downtown are the reason why people will come to a community after work hours. So Pearl Street Pizza, that's a smaller. Pearl Street Pizza in the AR Market, you're going to stop there and grab a couple tomatoes and some meat, and then you may grab a slice of pizza or a glass of wine.
Or run over to the Ladder One for dinner and catch a show after over at the Opera House.
Which actually, the Reynolds House Inn I mentioned earlier, there's a local entrepreneur, a guy by the name of Craig Locarno, who's partnered with the Reynolds House Inn, and they're doing a brunch over there on Sundays. So
when's this all starting?
So that is now. There's been ads in the world about it. I had a great conversation with Craig the other day. But we're inching closer towards having a breakfast joint here. Here in Barre. Although it's not 5 days a week, it's not. It may not be a regular breakfast joint, but breakfast buffets on Sundays are awesome. Get them. Get some pancakes, get a mimosa, and
are we talking like omelet station stuff here?
Well, just have to go find out.
Waffle station
stuff. Have to go find out. I can't spell all the beans here.
Oh boy. Sherilyn and I have driven by the L&M Diner, and I've had friends text me in the past months, ask Cody about the L&M Diner. We've driven by there. Oh, man, remember that place that was so great? You could go in there, you could sit in a booth right near the window, have some pancakes, cup of coffee, watch the traffic go by. Are you hearing anything, any rumblings out of that building that we might have that back up and running, or a breakfast joint over at Soups and Greens, which is set up for it?
So there have been people that have looked at the Soups and Greens property, and to my knowledge, nothing has materialized yet. Doesn't mean there won't. Doesn't mean
looked at it for food, for a restaurant.
I'm aware of just restaurant, but
Okay.
for everyone that I'm aware of, there's probably 2-3 times as many that have looked at it for any other number of reasons. But that doesn't mean that someone isn't getting ready to sign papers today on it and to move it in. We'll have a lot of businesses that will reach out to us, but the private sector, people are, if there's a number right in front of the building, a lot of people will just call the number in front of the building.
Yeah, right.
And then in that case, if we find out that there's a business that's moved in, we'll without our assistance, and we'll meet them afterwards.
Yeah.
And we'll help welcome them here. We'll do a ribbon cutting or something, and we'll talk about a lot of we'll give them information on the programs that we just discussed here today, and the other ones, just try to welcome them here and
you
keep
just
them
had a
happy
ribbon
here.
cutting, didn't you?
We did Pearl Street Pizza. Yeah,
That's right. That's
our
right.
first one of the year.
Last week.
Yep.
A week ago.
Yep. Last week they opened up over there.
Michael Booton, speaking of L&M Diner, says that the L&M Diner is partly city council's fault due to zoning laws that they voted on. Zoning ordinances need to be changed to make development easier, says Michael Booton.
Planning Commission. If you're interested in that, go volunteer for your local boards. Things like city and town commissions and committees. A lot of the policy, a lot of the stuff it's not always a city council or a select board thing. You'll have like a planning commission, development review board.
Yeah.
There are other policy making bodies.
I know there's a lot of mucky-muck red tape bullshit that goes into all of this. But the bottom line is, from the regular Joe who lives or travels through Barre City, has been seeing that empty, rundown L&M building for years now. I think it was a fire that originally took it out.
Yeah.
And, man, it's like there needs to be somebody has got to change something to make shit happen faster and easier so that we can turn that space around. So, A, it's not an eyesore. B, it's something.
Well,
I mean, look what's right next to it. Bueno is great.
That's what we're trying to do here right now.
Yeah.
We're trying to help give people and give the community the tools and the know-how that they need to go and redevelop it, and to let people know that the community is willing to work with them to redevelop the property. And the building is for sale right now. There is a sign on the back door with a phone number on it, so you can go.
Great space, man.
It's a great space. So it's just a matter of somebody from the community stepping up and doing something, coming in with a vision and doing something with the property.
God, I wish that would happen.
And one thing that comes up occasionally in this conversation is can't the city or can't the town force them to do whatever? We hear it with the Newbury building, 143 North Main, quite a bit. There is a vacant building ordinance. So if you have a vacant building, you are in compliance with it if you are actively trying to sell it. In other words, the Newbury building and some of the other ones do have a for sale signs on them. They're actively trying to be sold. The city or the town can't punish a property owner for what could be perceived as a shortcoming in the market, and you can't create an ordinance just to target a specific building. Like the city couldn't, or the town, couldn't go and say, we're going to create a law or we're going to create an ordinance just for that one building because we don't like it. We have private property rights in this country.
Understand.
And
what you're saying right now, what we're talking about right now, in my opinion, should be echoed every Monday, because if you were to say, what's the one thing you get asked about when you have Cody Morrison on, it's this, what we're talking about right now, this very second. And there's been letters to the editor. There's been all kinds of chatter about this. So what you're saying, bottom line is, if a property is for sale.
If a property is for sale, we do have a vacant building ordinance. If a property is for sale,
right,
then the market will dictate, the free market will dictate when it gets redeveloped.
What if somebody...
You can't create an ordinance. Would you want your local government to create a rule saying, I don't like you, therefore I'm going to fine you because I don't like you or your building or what you're doing? Obviously, there are some rules here, and we can't have like an oil refinery in downtown. We can't chuck batteries in the river. There are some regulations,
sure,
that are very sensical, but this comes back to civic engagement too. I think with COVID, people get distracted a lot, and it's easy to spend more time. More people are just worried about how they're going to get food on the table, how they're going to put a roof over their head, how they're going to make the car payment.
Sure.
But all this stuff is available on the city or the town's website. All these information are available at both municipal hall, in your local zoning office. Like tuning into select board meetings or city council meetings is important to learn about stuff like this, or planning commission, energy committee, anything like that.
BUUSD, they've got a board meeting Thursday at 5:30. The proposed budget, 6.4% increase will be discussed. So examples like this.
And the town and the city are going through the budget process right now. The city's had a couple. The city has had a couple budget workshops, and they're working towards finalizing a budget with a 1.99% increase with a sales tax. For infrastructure and capital improvements. And the town is starting to get their budget process in order. So the town has their town meeting day in May. So as a resident of East Barre, I go to the elementary school in May to vote for selectmen and whoever, instead of voting in March up at the auditorium here in the city. So they have an actual budget. They have a dedicated budget committee for that, and they're interviewing people right now to see who's going to become part of that. And they've actually had a lot of interest. But
do you think the vacant building ordinance should be re-examined and have some stipulations maybe added to it?
Well, what would that stipulation be, though?
Such as your property is valued at A, and you have it listed on the market for B, which is completely unrealistic, and it's been sitting there vacant for 20 years.
So price controls. Would you be in favor of your local government implementing price controls? That's essentially what it would come down to. I'm not debating the merits of that, but that's when you're talking about a policy with that, like that, you have to consider what the ramifications of it would be,
or how long something can be vacant for. If it's vacant for more than whatever time that it's re-examined, and the property owner is pulled into a meeting, and we sit down and we discuss face to face where we're at. Why is it still vacant?
Yeah, it's a little
more complicated than
every
that.
situation, every case, it's going to be a case-by-case thing. Sometimes you'll have property owners that are willing to work, and occasionally you'll have other people that'll have investment properties and may not be able to quickly come into a meeting with their local municipal office. However, though, the thing to do, like any policy maker will tell you, is you want to look for examples that other communities have done. Maybe there is some community out in Nebraska that has crafted a policy and worked on the same issue, and what that would be, what it would look like if it was updated. We don't know.
Yeah.
We would have to see what is legal, what has been adopted, what has worked in other communities. So if any citizen out there wants to do a little bit of homework and look into municipal vacant building ordinances from throughout the country, you may find some interesting creative solutions that communities have implemented. But
that's right.
But yeah, this isn't. You can't ordinance your way. You can't create laws and regulate your way out of everything. There are a lot of other funding mechanisms. There are other partnerships. There are other ways that a local government can partner with a property owner to redevelop it. And that's one thing that we try to do with a lot of the other buildings here in Barrytown and Barre City. An economic development position and organization is primarily tasked with industrial recruitment and retention.
Right.
So that's one example of a local government wanting to provide a service to address some of those root issues, instead of just trying to regulate and create laws to address every single thing. And another thing too is, whenever you create a new ordinance or you create a new law or regulation or process, there is a staffing requirement that has to be there's staff time that has to be allocated towards following up, maintaining compliance, and one thing to consider is that government is not immune from the staffing shortages that the private sector is. I'm sure if you were to go to any municipal office in the country right now, they're probably looking for a public works person. They're probably looking for a couple snowplow. Well, not everywhere in the country has snow issues, but I'm sure every government office is looking for somebody in some way, shape, or form. Yeah.
I just, in passing, the folks that I've spoken to, a lot of people have fond memories of the J.J. Newberry's building and would just love to see anything go in there that looks better when you're driving by than what we see now, I think, fair to say. So hopefully something will happen. But it's been I don't know how old you were when that building started to be vacant, but it's been a long time.
I believe it was last sold in 2010. My Barry history knowledge is rather limited, but I believe it was around 2010.
And I started up at Froggy in 2000, and it was vacant then.
But as with any of these buildings, they're for sale. So somebody, somebody from the community just needs to step up and needs to put in the sweat equity. And
I don't know if anybody's going to step up with $1.5 million though, and I think
we don't know that, JD.
Well, this is true.
Maybe people, entrepreneurs have what could seem like crazy ideas all the time. I was thinking about this over the weekend. Silly putty is an example. Who would have thought that something like silly putty would be a popular consumer product? And the people that created silly putty have more money than you or I could ever wrap our minds around. So, they're just, with any building, some buildings are turnkey and they're at a market value that you can just walk right in next week and open up shop, very much like this one. And some of them have some other opportunities, other obstacles, other regulatory, other site cleanup related things. So, somebody very well could. Somebody could go beyond. Somebody could be on their way right now to sign paperwork on it.
Right. Maybe an indoor roller skating rink.
Yeah. Actually, thanks for mentioning that, because
the roller skating rink.
If anyone out there, I don't know how I connect these two in my mind, but if anyone is interested or somebody knows of someone that wants to open a rock climbing gym, I want to talk to you. There is an opportunity and potential funding. So if somebody that is big into ice climbing or rock climbing or some other activity that I'm not thinking of right now, or if there's a gym owner that wants to expand and have like a rock climbing wall gym type thing, reach out to us.
I know you're going to think I'm bullshitting you, but I'm not. Not long ago, just a couple of weeks ago, we were coming through Rutland, stopped off at the indoor rock climbing gym in Rutland, and Lily just had at it. I mean, she had a blast. Couldn't get her out of there. We were in there for hours. Loved it. Come back home. Sherilyn and I are talking about where, we want to get her back rock climbing. And I was telling Sherilyn, I'm like, you got to see this. She's Spider-Man. We Googled, knew about one that was in Quechee that has since closed. We found out just then, a couple of weeks ago, that it had closed. Started looking around. Nearest one, I think, was Colchester, Burlington. I think there's 2 or 3 out that way, and Rutland, and that's it. But what a fantastic indoor wintertime activity to do outside of the traditional gym. There's gyms everywhere, yep. But wow, would that be incredible?
Well, I look at Granite City MMA.
Yes,
there are a few other mixed martial arts studios in the area. Lucas could tell you more about it. But he'll have people from over an hour away driving up just to come participate.
Right. And Josh just said we already have one, Sunrise Gymnastics. They have a small climbing wall there that's very small, but it's primarily, and I know because Lily goes there, it's primarily an indoor gymnastics center. It's not really a designated indoor rock climbing gym.
That's the one up in Berlin. Okay.
Yeah. What is that? What's that?
Oh, Sunrise Gymnastics. They're the one up in Berlin.
In Berlin, yeah. But that's they've just got a small rock climbing wall. Then it's not open to the public to come in there and go rock climbing. We're talking about a designated place where it's just rock climbing. Big, tall climbs. Yeah. You probably never thought that as the director of Barre Area Development that you'd be hosting a weekly podcast with me. But you have done such a great job. I thoroughly enjoy my chat with you every Monday, and I always learn something new. That's been a constant since we started partnering together. That I just always see things a little differently because you've taught me how to look with a broader lens, and I appreciate that so much. Final question. You grew up on a farm. How the hell are the animals dealing with this cold snap like this? What's going to happen at the farm today, tonight, tomorrow morning with the cows and everything with temperatures that are stupid cold?
So you're not going to see many cows outside.
Are we milking? Overnight. How do we run the milk machines when it's this cold? What do they do? Do they go into hibernation? Do they stop breathing? What do they do?
So a barn, like I'll use our family farm as an example. They have stalls. They get hooked up. They stay in overnight. There's plastic over the windows just for basic insulation. So the cows will stay inside, when they're done their evening milking. But generally, there's a pipeline that runs, from one end of the barn to the other that almost works as a suction system. There will be machines that will be run off the system, and they'll be put onto the udders, and milk will go through the machine into the pipeline into a big room, which houses like a holding tank. Yeah, which is what the milk truck looks like, a gas truck.
Pulls from.
And that's what the gas truck or the milk truck will pull from.
Yeah.
But they'll stay in overnight. Occasionally, the water bowls, they have their own, almost like a little fountain. They have their own water bowls, each cow does, and those do freeze on occasion. It's hard to heat a 40,000 square foot barn.
Exactly.
That's older than you and I put together.
Yeah.
So a few times a year on really cold nights, the water bowls will freeze. So then, you gotta, first thing in the morning, you gotta go and thaw them. So I remember taking like towels, like little washcloths, hand cloths, and just taking buckets of hot water and going to every one of them and wrapping all the pipes in the morning just to thaw them out so the cows could drink water during the night. But that's just a little thing that you have to do on a farm that just can't wait.
Yeah.
You can't take a heat gun with a long extension cord and just hold it and hope it thaws out eventually. You got to take pretty quick action because these are animals that are living that can't go out and get other water, but they get fed like indoors extra during the night. So during the summer, when you see the tractors that are out in the fields, they're out mowing the grass and they're out raking it, and a lot of people call them marshmallows. You see the big hay bales. If you ever see them wrapped, they're wrapped for kind of that purpose. So if a hay bale is wrapped, that'll be for outdoor storage, essentially. So you bring one of those in at night and you feed the cows.
Gives them
before you start
energy and heat.
Yeah. So we've
keeps
got
the
one.
Blood flowing.
You've got one person that's doing the actual milk and taking the machines on and off. Which is usually my dad growing up, and then you have. People that are working on like the feeding of the cows, whether it be chopped up grass or rolling out one of those hay bales. That would usually be my brothers and I, and all of this is a complete team effort. But you change up your approach a little bit. You hope that equipment doesn't freeze and that you can start equipment. And another big issue that often gets you mentioned the heat and drinking the water and the feeding, cleaning. Cows have there's a lot of let's see, what was the best PG-13 word I can use for this?
God,
there's a lot of manure that cows produce, a lot of manure, so usually there's a chain like gutter cleaner system,
the gutter cleaner
that will that will dump all the waste out to a pit.
I have one at my house. It runs around the perimeter of my living room. So
you've got to hope that system doesn't fail.
Yeah.
And it's during the winter. They go outside less. They may go out in between the morning and the evening milking.
Do they like the cold? Generally, probably more than the heat.
I'm sure they are crazy. I mean, they have coats.
Yeah.
They existed for thousands of years without this.
Sure.
Without farming, before agriculture became an art and a practice. So they can survive outside, without coats and things of that nature. But they're brought inside a lot more because like the butterfat quality, the milk quality can vary depending on season, depending on their diet, depending on even the cut of hay that they eat that day. So, like if you mow a field for the first time in May, the grass quality and the nutrients will be a little different than it will be after your third cutting in, say, September. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of
is big time science to it.
Yeah, it's a big time science. It's an imperfect science, but it's a daily. It's a marathon.
That's some hard work, man. That's some hard work
every day. And
I know you're out that way with your family, often working the farm with any spare time that you have, which is remarkable, man.
One thing that's crazy is over Thanksgiving, I did a little bit of work and I could feel it in my abs a little bit, in my arms a little more, and I was thinking to myself, like, man, I must have been jacked when I was a teenager. Like, it's easy to forget how much how strenuous it is on one's body, and just how, like, I'm a fast walker, which I point to, needing to get from 400 feet, 600 feet from one end of a barn to another.
Yeah.
If I don't feel like running, well, what's the quickest way to cross a distance if you're walking? Just walk faster.
Yeah.
So I'm notoriously a fast walker, probably for that reason. But the chores, They change up in the summer a little bit when you do have to go out and do all the haying.
Yeah.
You're driving the tractors outside more. You're going in circles and circles and circles with a mower or with a rake. I remember, bringing iced teas and my Walkman out there with headphones and just zoning out and going in circles and getting sunburned.
What the hell's Putin talking about? He says they've got a Roomba type thing for the cow deposits, and it's amazing to see on YouTube. What the hell's he talking about?
So parlors. There's a couple different ways that cows will be kind of put into a barn, for instance. Like some of them, they'll go into a little parlor, a dozen at a time. They'll get milked, and then they'll go out into a bigger common area. Then a dozen will be brought in. You know what? Josh Howard makes a great point. Barry beat live tonight. Michael, I hope you let us know about the Roomba cow deposits.
Yes, please.
That sounds fascinating.
I want a good 15 minutes about the Roomba cow deposit system, and I want them to drop a link on YouTube too.
Well, I mean that relates to the chicken ordinance somehow, I would think.
Thanks for coming on, brother.
Yeah, good seeing you.
Oh man, I love having you in here. You do such a great job. CODY Morrison from Barre Area Development. Are we missing? Is there anything else that we're slipping here that we're missing?
Cow tipping isn't real.
I was wondering if you were going to say that.
Cow tipping isn't real. I know everyone's out. It's on everyone's minds. I've never seen a cow sleeping standing up, we all go through life from previous jobs with random skills.
Yes.
Wrestling cows is one that I'm uniquely knowledgeable in. I don't think I'm ever going to have to wrestle another cow again in my life, but I'm ready for when the day comes.
And with that said, the cold snap's not going to be with us too long. We're going to be here tomorrow morning, and we'll give you an update on the weather. But look out. We've got a real intense blast of Arctic air. It'll be short-lived again, but mainly tonight, I think 7 o'clock it goes into effect and runs through tomorrow. So through tomorrow morning especially. So just, think about getting that car started a few minutes early, and make sure any animals that you have outside that they're indoors and well taken care of, and that they've got water that's in the liquid state, as we do for our little bunny rabbit living out in the barn right now. Hey, Barslow Construction, Granite City MMA, two of several of our presenting sponsors. It was so great to have Lucas John on the air the other day, and Rex Thompson as well. Preston's Kia, Jason Trombley's going to be here in the studio with us very soon. Jason Gauthier of Gauthier's Quality Grounds and Maintenance, also with Trash King Trash Removal, serving all of Central Vermont. Wright Electric, Wood Doodles, Donnybrook Fight Promotion. Don't forget, February 19th at the Barre Auditorium, the Battle in Barre 6. We have your tickets. You can buy them right here at our studios at 185 North Main Street in Barre, right across from Nelson's Ace Hardware. Barre, Montpelier, Times Argus. Steve Pappas can be with us again this week. Always good to have him in here. ASB Financial, which is where we're broadcasting from, at 185 North Main Street in Barre. Vermont Custom Woodworking, CW Creative, Gustos, FGB Theaters, Barre Area Development, the Central Vermont Chamber of Commerce, Salvador and Babbitt, Fecto Homes, Green Mountain Mulch, Fontaine Forestry and Millworks, and Giroux General Transport. Appreciate your eyes and your ears. Keep the comments coming here. CODY is looking at them and reading them. He's very good at responding as well. So we appreciate your engagement with us this morning. And thanks for catching Aired Out.